back to the Pool Pro Podcast. Do you need a tip on how to build a super tight pool route, especially when it comes to hiring employees? Either way, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Michelle Kavanaugh. Thank you for joining us today. We're hoping that you take away a tip or two to help you with your business. My guest today is somebody that I've had on the podcast before. So excited to have him. He has a great resource of information. He was a Fortune 50 executive, Silicon Valley startups involved in that, and then actually left that industry and started his own pool service company. He found that interesting and started it up by himself. He was the only employee at the time, and then build that up to 50 employees and then servicing residential and commercial pools. Probably a little over 2,000 a week were serviced. And then he decided to retire and live the good life and sold his business. So thank you so much, Fred, for joining us. We really appreciate you giving us some of your knowledge and helping us along. Fred, let's talk about building capital and building, I say building credit, but building capital, because I think there's many things you can do to do that for your business. I think it's so important. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because as far as steps involved in hiring your first employee, obviously there's only two ways to fund that. And it's either by saving the money or borrowing the money. So can you talk a little bit about maybe your experience with hiring and what you had to do and how you did that to be successful?
Sure. Well, in my case, it was really hard because leaving the corporate world and then coming over here and trading in my Lexus for a Ford Ranger and going out and running a pool route, I had a big overhead. We had a big expensive house. I had a lot of bills. My wife didn't work. I had a big nut every month. So for me I wasn't even cash flow on our monthly minimum expenses for mortgage and rent and payroll, mortgage and food and all that stuff, insurance every month. So I was borrowing every month,
right,
trying to get my business going here. So it was very stressful. So I don't suggest that you do that.
Here's what not to do.
Here's what not to do. And I had to do over. I think I would have figured out how to live below our means for a while.
Yeah.
So that actually, and when you're first starting out, there's just not going to be enough revenue from your customers coming in to save anything. You're just not. But as you start to get up to, higher levels of revenue, depending on what trade you're in, or 50, 60, 70 pools on a pool route, there should start to be some extra money every month. And instead of going out and getting that new truck or going and buying a new TV, say, okay, I can start sacking away a few dollars here and there. And then that becomes your seed money for this first employee. So you just start to save a little bit at a time. Now, simultaneously, you need to be aware of your credit rating, and you need to know what that is. So you've got to be building a great credit, because I just don't know how you're going to do this by saving it all up. That's just really hard. Like we talked earlier. Yeah. You might be able to save up $5,000, $10,000 if you're really lucky, right? If you really work hard at it, that's a lot of money for somebody, at these revenue levels. That's a lot to save. So, wow, I'm a really hard time doing that. But if you thought, wow, but if I got really good credit and I could borrow half of that, maybe I've only got to save $7,000 and I can borrow $7,000. And wow, now I can do it. Okay, now I can see how I can do this. Does that make sense?
Because on a previous episode of this podcast, we talked about we're just estimating it may cost about $5,000 to hire your first employee. Now, again, this is based on your market and what the going wages are in your area. But Fred lives in California, so we estimated about $5,000. So if you're having to be able to decide, okay, how am I going to be able to pay somebody $5,000 for a month or two or three or four? Are you gonna take no money out of the business? If you've saved enough, at least maybe you can pay your bills with it and then use the revenue to pay your employee until you get more revenue coming in. But the building of the credit is so important. And this is personally and professionally. Forget about just hiring your first employee. You personally, even if you choose not to, should be building your personal credit, and you should be building business credit for your business as well. Now, as Fred and I talked about in a previous episode, unless you're an S Corp or something, if you're a sole proprietorship or an LLC, you can't really build business credit for your business. And business credit is an asset to the business, because when you sell the business off, that is considered an asset. They look at that. So that's important. And so you can hire companies to do this for you, or you can try to start it out yourself, whatever you prefer to do. And if you need some help or some advice, you can always go to mkconsultingservices.com. You can schedule a call with me. I'd be happy to help you. I've been through this process myself, so I have experience in this. I'd be happy to help you. But if you're going to save the money, as Fred said, it's going to be hard to do it fully just on savings. Maybe save the money for 3 months of your own bills, or 2 or 3 months so that you can, be able to pay your rent while you bring an employee. But can you talk a little bit about, and I was thinking, when you build your business credit and you go out and get a loan, I personally would start with building a relationship with a banker. I think is also very important. I don't know, Fred, if you had that experience doing that. Did you have a particular person you borrowed from, or did you go out and shop around on rates, or what'd you do?
Well, yeah, in California, any business we're talking about at this scale, we're not going to get the attention of any bankers. I don't care if it's community. You got to be a little bit bigger before you can really start to build a relationship with a community bank where they know you personally. And the difference is if they know you personally and they know you're a good person and you have well budget and you bring in good financials, well, then they're starting to bet on you. You're building their trust in you, not your business. But when you're first starting out, you're just a number. So to Michelle's point, the higher your credit was, now Michelle and I both have pretty good credit. We started out with our businesses. I had really good credit, and I would get cards in the mail and offers for 0% interest for 6 months per year. And I would use that. I would max that out and say, heck yeah, I'll take that money all day long and use it to invest in the business or live on or whatever we needed to do. So
yeah. Makes sense. And that is something I have done this myself, you guys. So I have experience with this. I went out and got a bunch of 0 interest credit cards for the business to help build it. Now you got to be careful with that, because if you go out and do that, then you don't pay your bills on time. You're actually hurting yourself, not helping yourself. Yeah. So it's not, you've got to pay those business credit cards off on time. In fact, I pay them 10 days early just to be safe. So you need to make sure you're doing that as well. But if you need help with that, again, there's only 2 ways to do this, folks. You're either going to save or you're going to borrow to be able to manage this first employee hire. So again, if you need help, you can go to mkconsultingservices.com. And if you wanted to talk to Fred separately about, his experience in the industry, or in many industries, actually, I could give you his contact information as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We truly appreciate it. And we hope you walked away with a tip that could help you with your business. Have a wonderful day.
A new voice in the industry, a resource for all, education for you. This is Pool Pro Podcast. Build relationships and share important news as we get ready for our next backyard adventure. Pool Pro Podcast. Backyard adventures are better together. Please take a moment to share, like, and review our content with all of those that would be interested.